The following takes place between 9 a.m. and 10 a.m. Events occur in real time.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome back. It's FPC Radio Live. It's Tuesday. It's November the 16th, 2021, and we are through 10 weeks of the NFL season. And with the Monday night wrapping up, or Monday Night Football last night to wrap up the week, we saw, well, a San Francisco beatdown. I know you're a Giants fan in baseball, but and I know we both have a little bit of a affection towards Jimmy Garoppolo. I know he's a paisan of yours, and of course a former Patriot for me. He was pretty solid yet last night. The San Francisco 49ers really took it to the Rams, and dare I say, there's panic at the disco doesn't really work. So panic in LA.
Panic at SoFi.
Yeah, there you go.
Maybe.
I like that.
Well, here's the thing, and I tweeted at you and Clark Judge at John Staff 25 that the Rams, after a 3-0 start, which culminated with them beating the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, they're 4-3 since that win over Tampa, and the four teams they beat are combined 7, 28, and 1. And we talked about it, like, who's making the Rams schedule? It seemed like every week they were playing, I don't know, the Texans or the Lions or just some awful team, and they would take care of business against them. But, you know, you look at the three losses they had last night, obviously they were absolutely destroyed by the San Francisco 49ers. They also lost at Arizona, at home against Arizona, and then Tennessee beat the hell out of them, and turnovers were a problem with Matthew Stafford, which really isn't a surprise. And I think we talked about it yesterday about Matt Stafford. I just look at him as a more talented version of Kirk Cousins, like a really good quarterback who you can win games with, will put up really nice stats. At the end of their career, they may say, oh, this guy's a Hall of Famer, kind of like Phillip Rivers. Right, so they're in that same level.
I think Phillip Rivers is a much better quarterback than Matt Stafford. I'm not a big I don't mean to interrupt you. I'm just not a big Matt Stafford fan. And I think this season is really showing why I'm not a fan. But sorry, go ahead.
No, I think you're 100% right. I'm not a real Rivers fan, so maybe we're just splitting hairs comparing the two. Maybe I'm more style over substance. I like watching Stafford throw the ball. It's very elegant and pretty to watch.
I do too, because you never know who it's going to go to. That's thing.
That's true too. Yeah. Well, he's
can I chime in real quick? Like, and we talked about this a little bit yesterday, and I brought up the tweet that I responded to the PFF thing, like, what's going to stop this offense? Well, I mistakenly said a boneheaded interception in the playoffs. I don't even know if it's going to get that far. I mean, this could happen before the playoffs are over, and it could sink their ship. Or before the playoffs start, and it could sink their ship. But like we've seen Matt Stafford with so much talent around him, and yet this is who he is. Like some of the throws he made last night, I'm sitting there scratching my head, like, what are you thinking? You are a 10-year veteran. You know, this isn't some rookie kid coming in. Like, you know, if Mac Jones every so often, you know, makes a kind of a puzzling decision or looks a little lost out there, you know, hey, you scrap it up to, hey, he's played 10 games, not 10 years. Matt Stafford's been in the league for 10 years. He's a number one overall pick with, you know, I think he got this, there was this, you know, kind of this honeymoon period when he got traded where everyone was like, see, and look, myself included, I was like, look, take him out of Detroit. You know, it's going to be a little bit better for him, but don't get too amped up because, well, you know, he's not going to completely change his. I mean, just because he was in Detroit doesn't absolve him from all his mistakes, and he's made a ton of them over the course of the years. You brought it up yesterday. He's never won a playoff game in 10 years. I understand you're with the Lions, but hey, guess what? The Tampa Bay Buccaneers hadn't won a playoff game in quite some time, and they changed quarterbacks, and look what happened. So at a certain point, you can't be like the quarterback's important enough that he can elevate the team above where they should be. And I'm talking about the Lions. Right now, he's part of the reason why this Rams team isn't where they should be. Now, again, there's a lot of other issues with this Rams team, and, you know, very quick look. It looks like it's more a collection of talent. I think Chris Collinsworth had it. I actually hadn't muted it at this point, but I think he used this phrase. It was more of a collection of talent than an actual team. And we know how far teams can get. We also know how far in the opposite direction collections of talent get. in the NFL. So,
And I think and half of their salary cap is tied up in 6 players, and they're also paying Jared Goff's salary or a large portion of it
and they
as
have
well.
no draft picks.
They have no draft picks, so they're all in on stars, right? So you look at them and go, "Wow, this team is loaded. They've got this supposedly an elite quarterback, and they've got a future Hall of Famer at left tackle, and they've got 3 Hall of Famers on defense with Jalen Ramsey and Von Miller and Aaron Donald, and it looks so good. But what's the rest of the roster look like? You build your roster. I wouldn't say necessarily from the bottom up, but maybe from the middle and then both ways. You have to have depth. And I look at the Green Bay Packers, who have had a ton of injuries this year, but they've survived because let's give Brian Gutekunst, the general manager, some credit here. I know he's been kind of a punching bag during the offseason. He's built a nice roster, right? They lose Aaron Jones. They've got A.J. Dillon, and Jones is probably going to come back in a couple of weeks. They don't have to rush him back. They haven't had perhaps the best left tackle in football in David Bakhtiari all year. Their offensive line has still played well. They draft and develop players, and they build depth. We know what Bill Belichick does, right? So if someone goes out, it's not the end of the world. The Patriots won a Super Bowl without Rob Gronkowski. I remember 2016 when he got hurt, it was like, there's no way in hell they're going to win the Super Bowl. Well, they won the Super Bowl without Rob Gronkowski. The Rams are so top-heavy that, who are the other 8 guys on defense for LA? I know Donald's great and Von Miller's great, although he looked a little washed up last night. Good deal for Denver getting a second and third round pick for a rental. And Jalen Ramsey's an elite corner that you don't have to throw at. But who are the other 8 guys out there?
Good question.
That's how you do it, right? It can't just be about, okay, we've got 3 great players on defense, and we've got, Odell Beckham's going to come in and save the day. I would have taken Robert Woods over Odell Beckham last night, or probably any night of the week, because he's a better all-around receiver. He's better for that offense. He's a really good blocker. He can play in the slot. I mean, Odell's a shiny toy. Odell, to me, is the sports car that you drive, a couple of times in the year in the summer, but when it comes to winter, what the hell are you going to do with it? Put it in the garage.
Yeah, and look, we brought up some of these. I'm going to pat up both of our sides of our backs here because we were both concerned right off the bat with this. It's like, okay, how important or how good of a move is this for the Rams? Like, to go get a receiver. Do they really need one? How much better does it make them? And I don't think either of us thought it made them any better. It just was, and that was with Robert Woods on the field. Now with Robert Woods out, Odell Beckham becomes a necessity as opposed to, a luxury. And, well, again, that I think was a little bit overstated because, we were seeing some of these issues pop up for the Rams. And now look, like, that's why I said when people were kind of jumping on or getting excited about, this is how you team build. Who cares about draft pick? Who cares about that? Well, just wait. Just wait. Like, this whole cap is crap mentality or the cap doesn't exist is it's foolish. I mean, it does exist. Like, you can't just ignore it. Eventually, it's going to come back. And, like, look, I said it when they made the Von Miller trade. This is a Super Bowl team, a Super Bowl winning team or not. There's no in between for them. It's either success or failure. And if they fail, I mean, good God, John, where do they go? What do they do? They're selling out to host a home Super Bowl. That's what's happening. It's LA. It's the big stadium just opened up. There's been this battle of the Chargers versus the Rams. Who's going to be more relevant? Sean McVay. This whole like mentality. I mean, what did Sean McVay do yesterday? What kind of adjustments is he capable of making? Like you brought it up. I mean, they are incapable of coming from behind. That's a lot on coaching and preparation.
The thing with Sean, 43-0 when leading at halftime. So when he's got the lead at halftime, it's game set match. 10-27 when tied or trailing at halftime. We saw that even in the Super Bowl against the Patriots, they made no adjustments throughout the game, and Belichick did, and it was enough to get the Patriots over the top. I'm going to compare that to how we assess actors. Like Sean McVay, great leading up to the game. He can design a great game plan. Everything works. He's got the scripted play early. Great. But then when the game starts and there has to be some adjustment, he's not quite capable of that. And again, he'll learn to do that. It's almost like a film actor, right? You have as many takes as you want to nail the scene. Bill Belichick, conversely, is a guy who makes adjustments not just at halftime, but throughout the game. He's like a stage actor, right? A great thespian who gets on stage and it is live. You don't have mulligans when you're a stage actor, and that's Belichick. Throughout the game, he can make those adjustments. Now, it's never fair to compare about any coach in the league to Belichick. We see what his accomplishments are, but that's something that McVay obviously has a weakness on. Like, once the game starts, if it doesn't work out, where do we go from here?
Mm-hmm. And that's exactly what we saw this past week or yesterday, and we've seen it over and over again. And that's why I always kind of laugh at this. You know, we should understand it by now, John. I mean, we see it all the time in every sport. There's always there's it's always the extremes on both ends. Like, far too often we talk about it with quarterbacks, and it happens with coaches too. I mean, Sean McVay was the it guy. Like, I remember a couple years ago, if you even were in like, if you were not social distancing around Sean McVay, you were an offensive coordinator essentially.
Oh,
So
yeah.
yeah, if you were in his like cloud, you got jobs because it's Sean McVay, the most this, that, and the other. He has a guy who pulls him off the sideline, and I always just laugh at that because it's so unnecessarily theatrical. You know what I mean? Like, there's no need to do that. Like, okay, like, it's a funny story and it's a little quick, but it's like, okay, what exactly is the point of all of this? It's basically for show. It's basically for, and you'll have to excuse my cat jumping up on the table here. She just kind of got in the camera, but it is what it is. But anyways, I always found it more of just a dog and pony show. And
Yeah, I
that's
mean,
the
he's
yeah.
in LA. He's in LA. We see the beautiful house that they hold the draft in, which they don't need to even have this year.
Thank you. Sorry,
But,
I don't mean to cut you off, but I'm so glad because I kind of forgot about that, and I'm so glad you brought that up. Why? Like, we talk, and I bring this up all the time. That Super Bowl against Belichick, seeing the post video, after the game, him being goo goo gaga over, seeing Bill Belichick, and I was like, oh God, that game was over in that second. And then it's like, then you go to this whole glitz and glamour. This is the draft room. This is how many TVs Sean McVay has, all of these computers. And it's like, what is the GD point of all this? Because that's not helping you. Like, all this like flashy and tech. It's like the rich kid who just always had the fancy stuff but didn't know what the hell to do with it. And it's like, you got Bill Belichick over there with his dog Nike and a laptop, because guess what? He did all the work prior to that. He doesn't have to show off for the camera and become this like larger than life character because he's already done the work. It's not this like facade.
That particular though was because of COVID. They were doing the draft remotely, so they all had something.
It was still way over. It was still way over the top and unnecessary. Like, why do you need to rent a $1 million mansion? Like, dude, do it in a conference room. On you know what I mean? Like, just, you don't. That's what I'm saying. Like, it's so unnecessarily flashy with no substance to it. It's all surface.
I just like Kingsbury's house though. Cliff Kingsbury did it, but that again was during COVID. Remember when Cliff Kingsbury was sitting there with his. He's a good-looking dude. I mean,
mistaken. Mistaken me if correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure he was just like sitting there, like, again, if you're at home doing it, during COVID, that's one thing, but I'm pretty sure, like I said, Bill Belichick was sitting at a dining room table with a laptop. Cliff Kingsbury was sitting in his nice house, but it was like him on a computer, in his living room. And then you got Sean McVay looking like he was in the basement of the Batman basement from Batman Begins, where Morgan Freeman's standing there with the 200 TVs monitoring everything, and it's like, what the hell is the point of this? All it is, it's just for show. It's glitz and glamour. It's this like facade that they're trying to put on, and guess what? That facade is wearing thin because it doesn't mean jack if you don't win games and if you don't look good even in losses. I mean, they've looked bad in losses. They haven't beaten good teams, and right now they have a collection of talent that looks like that's all it is, just a collection of talent. And
it feels like an NBA team. And I said that they traded for Von Miller and even more when they signed Odell Beckham Jr. There's 3 NBA teams in LA right now, the Lakers, the Clippers, and the Rams. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of built like that with stars. And maybe there's the pressure in LA to just have stars so you're relevant. I still think the Raiders are the most popular team in LA, not the Rams or the Chargers. So the Rams are trying to get traction. I mean, they were away from the city for 20 years in St. Louis. The Chargers moved from San Diego. So, I mean, LA's football market is really, really strange. I think make a case the Cowboys are the second or third most popular team in LA, and the Packers are probably the fourth most popular team in LA because they've got that national brand, right? LA's not a great football city. I think the two biggest franchises in LA in some order are the Dodgers and Lakers. Like those are the two mega franchises in that city, not an NFL team, and the Rams are trying to get in there. And again, they have the richest owner in the NFL and Stan Kroenke, so they're just overspending and trying to make splash moves, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to work.
Yeah, and look, I mean, I think we've seen, especially in football, that stuff like that doesn't work,
Mm-hmm.
for the most part, because again, there's too many moving parts. You need too many. Like, look, if you had a team like that and you had, like I said, I'll bring up Brady because he gets brought up a lot on this game. If you had put Brady on that as that leader on that team, a lot of problems get solved because he's a guy who can obviously manage that sort of collection of talent. Whereas, like I said, I don't think Matt Stafford can. I mean, I'm like whatever faith I had in Stafford before, and there wasn't much. It's plummeting. I tweeted it yesterday. Those little stock emojis, just boom, looking like my profile right now, just plummeting right now to the ground. And like to me, it's like, okay, I've seen enough. Like, what grouping of players are going to make him better or make him actually perform? At this point, I'm just looking at it. Okay, it's the same old Matt Stafford. Short of some fortunistic or fortunate run, I don't ever see them winning a Super Bowl, let alone getting to one. Because I look at it right now, and I pulled up, if you're looking on the screen, you'll see the NFC playoff picture right now. Green Bay with the number 1 seed. The Rams are still at number 5, but it's by virtue of, I think there's a bit of a gap, from that point to the next grouping of teams. So, like, you have the Packers, the Cardinals, the Cowboys, the Bucks, and the Rams in the top 5 spots. All have fewer than 3 losses, or at least 3 or fewer losses. The next grouping comes, it's the Saints, the Panthers, the Vikings, 49ers, and the Falcons, all with like 4 or 5 wins. So there's a bit of a
yeah. So it's kind of like last year though. Remember how the Bucks were the 5 seed, but
yeah.
we thought they were a scary as hell team because of Brady. And then the next 2 teams were what the Bears were in there as a 7.
Yeah, question. Who else?
And actually, the Rams were the 6th seed, and they ended up beating Seattle in the wild card game.
Yeah.
So, but it's obviously the NFC's top heavy. I don't see the Rams falling below 5. Which, if the season ended today, that crazy sentence that we sometimes have to throw out there, the Rams would be at Tampa. That would be the wild card game. If they're fortunate to even win that, then they probably have to go to Green Bay.
Mm-hmm.
And if they're fortunate to win that, they'd have to go to Arizona or Dallas. They have to win 3 road games against teams that are as good as them, if not better.
And I think at this point,
they're better. And if look out of those 5 teams, right? Green Bay, Arizona, Tampa, Dallas, and the LA Rams rank the quarterback. I mean, forget the first 2 because we know it's going to be Brady and Rodgers. After that, I'm taking Dak over Matt Stafford.
Oh,
I'm probably taking Dak over Matt Stafford. So they would have the 5th best quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
And someone on TV today, I won't say his name because you don't like him, but he said essentially what the Rams did was they got rid of a chef that was poisoning the customers and Jared Goff. They went out and with the Cheesecake Factory, got their best chef, brought him into the restaurant, and then expected like 5-star rating.
Yeah.
Well, they didn't go get Brady or Rodgers. They got Matt Stafford, who again is a good quarterback, puts up good numbers, but he's not that guy that's going to elevate people. He's going to play along with his teammates. And look, how many times do we have to say this? The man had Calvin Johnson for 8 years.
Yeah,
maybe
exactly.
Gifted wide history of the league, playing in a dome, right? I always like to throw that in there because Brady and Rodgers have had to play their games outdoors in cold and snow. A lot of good things. Do you think Matt Stafford's going into Green Bay and winning a playoff?
No,
I don't think so. I mean, he won once or twice at Lambeau Field, and one of those games Rodgers didn't play. So I don't see that happening.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's like and his number 2 receivers could arguably be good enough to be number 1 receivers on some of those other players' teams. So like he has not had any shortage of talent. Now, has the coaching always been great? Probably not. I think Jim Caldwell kind of got a bad rep because I think he is a good coach. Just he was saddled with a very bad franchise. But at the same time, when it comes to individual production, like I think people got enamored with the stat compiler that is Matt
Right.
Stafford. And yeah, well, and like that's the thing. People to this point still, I mean, we still have people valuing running over, many other qualities of the quarterback when, this isn't track and field. You know what I mean? There's certain value
Mhm.
to it, but when you rank it among the most important traits of a quarterback, well, you're just wrong. It's kind of like with Matt Stafford. It's, oh, great, look at all those 5,000-yard seasons. Well, let's dive a little bit deeper. He still turns the ball over. They're a bad team, so you would expect them to get a lot of opportunities of playing from behind, which generally leads to more throwing. And like I said before, like throwing 5,000 yards isn't a guarantee that you have a great season. Look at Jameis Winston. I mean, sometimes you throw 5,000 yards just because you're a bad team and you just have, you know
Uh-huh.
what I mean? You just have to. So it's same with like Drew Brees. That's why I always kind of fought back about the whole Drew Brees thing. It's like, I don't care that he threw 3 straight 5,000-yard seasons while going 7-9.
Mhm.
Like, that's not
No, no.
impressive to me, especially when you're turning the ball over as often as he was during those stretches. So,
It's
uh,
the game, and we just look at how many years Brady with the Patriots. How many times they would win games? It would turn out to be 24-10, and in the fourth quarter they kills clock, and it was
yeah, well,
situation.
we've seen it this season multiple times from
Yeah, we
Brady.
see that. We see that.
Like there
It's
was a couple games
at
where
the
it's
game.
like he was I think he sat pretty much the entire fourth quarter against Miami. I think he played like 3 or 4 minutes, basically one series, and that was it. And again, that's why like we'll get into it now in a little bit because we're going to do our quarterback power rankings through 10 weeks, and when it comes to the MVP race, I know people were just rushing to Twitter to throw Brady out of the race, and I'm sitting here thinking, I'm like, who the hell's taking it from him? Like,
Right.
no
No,
one's
no, no one.
no one seems to want to take it. And like, look, I think Aaron Rodgers is having a good season, although his what happened with the whole COVID thing, I think pretty much takes him out of the running, short of some unbelievable stretch of games here in the last 8 games. And I think even as a Rodgers fan, I think you would agree with me because
It's gonna be tough for him to win the
the
MVP. First of all,
actions that resulted in him missing games and ultimately losing a game for the team, I think is very not MVP worthy. And
yeah,
again,
he
that's
wasn't out with an ankle. I
yeah,
mean, if you're out with like Kyler Murray missed 2 games so far, they're 1-1 because of an ankle injury. It's not because of a COVID situation. Yeah,
yeah,
no, I
it's a
think
little
it's
bit
going to be
different.
Rodgers would have to over the next 7 games have 25 touchdowns and no interceptions.
Yeah,
And he has done that before. He did that in 2016, that type of stretch. But that's what he needs to do to really get in the conversation. I doubt. I mean, now you look at Green Bay as a defense for a team, which is kind of interesting. But yeah, it'll be difficult for him. And look, this is the year set up for maybe a non-quarterback to an MVP. We both always feel it should be a quarterback. It's the most
Mhm.
important position for all sports. I get it. If Derrick Henry had remained healthy and run for 2,100 yards, it was probably his award to win.
Yeah.
But that's not going to happen. Like, and there's nobody on defense that's going to get the MVP. I mean, the last defensive player to win MVP was Lawrence Taylor in 1986. I mean, it doesn't happen. Um, I threw out the name last week as just a joke. Tyron Smith, the left tackle of Dallas. When he plays, they
Yeah.
score like 40 points per game. When he doesn't play, they score like 10 points per game. It's like he has a huge impact on Dak Prescott. So in some sense, it's almost like the hockey assist. Like he's MVP because Dak Prescott becomes an MVP when he's in the game. But it's going to be one of the quarterbacks. And right now, my vote would go to Brady. I think he's had the
Yeah.
best year of all the quarterbacks.
Yeah, and look, I mean, he missed an opportunity a little bit to really separate from the pack even more. So I still think he's um, fairly comfortable. Like, I mean, if he goes out and has a pretty solid rest of the season, like basically what he's been doing this entire season, he's going to win the MVP because Tampa's going to win some games. He's going to have the numbers. Technically, he's not the league leader in passing right now, but the 2 people ahead of him, Matt Stafford has like 130 yards more, has played more games. They've played 10, he's played 9. He still leads the league in touchdown passes. He's still, I think he's third in QBR. Again, one of those players is Derrick Henry because of his touchdown pass. He's actually ahead of him. So, people were quick to jump over. And look, if you watch the game on Thursday, no one's in their right mind is going to sit there and credit him or say he threw 2 interceptions, except for Bruce Arians of all people. But
He wants to blame for 3 interceptions,
yeah,
even though
he's like the other one should have. It's just like, okay, whatever, Bruce, whatever, Bruce. Go.
They have a weird relationship. It almost feels like a father-son relationship where they really do love each other, but occasionally the father kind of goes off and maybe has to show the rest of the team that I can, berate.
Yeah, but what's the point of blaming Tom Brady for that first interception? There's no point to that. That's kind of getting into that LA Rams territory where you're just being theatrical. You're being dramatic for no reason. And that's stupid in football. So, but yeah, at the end of the day, I mean, he's been the best quarterback from start to finish. Like, yeah, did he have a great game last week? No, it was mediocre. Threw for 220 yards, 2 touchdowns, couple picks. It is what it is. Been a lot of games like that from quarterbacks, and a lot of worse games from quarterbacks, especially those in contention. And Dak Prescott had a nice game. He's missed some. He missed the game, correct?
He missed the game and they won, which I think hurts your chances.
Oh, sure.
Kyler 2 games and they're 1-1. Now Rodgers missed the game and they lost, but the reason he missed the game was his own stupidity.
Yeah. Well, look, I mean, missing.
Roethlisberger missed Sunday's game. They missed the next one, but of course Ben's not in the.
No. Well, missing games is part of it, regardless of the situation. I think if you do, and look, this was held against Brady in 2016. Now, again, he missed games because of suspension, and we don't need to go down that rabbit hole and to argue the validity of that. But that hurt him a lot because, look, at the end of the day, there was no better player in the NFL in 2016. And no disrespect to Matt Ryan. But the second Tom Brady returned against Cleveland in Week 5, I mean, he just went on an absolute tear from start to finish, and again was the best player, but he missed those 4 games, so he wasn't getting much love in the MVP race. And look, I think there's some legitimacy to that. I mean, part of the value of being MVP is being there for your team, and if you get injured, it's unfortunate, but you do end up missing time. So I think that negatively affects those guys. As good as Patrick Mahomes looked this past week, he's going to have to do quite a bit. Plus, like I said, my belief is that that team goes more so as Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce go as opposed to him. But that's, again, I might be a little bit biased and be a little bit harsh, but I just call it like I see it, John.
Yards Sunday, though, you look at his yards Sunday. Mahomes had 406 yards. I believe 60% of those yards were yards after catch, which is great. That's perfect. That's what the quarterback should do, right? When you have 2 playmakers like Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce, get rid of the ball quickly. You don't have to have a 45-yard pass to have a 45-yard completion. You can have a 15-yard completion turn into a 45-yard pass because you have playmakers like that. Brady does it. Rodgers had probably 90-plus yards Sunday on screen passes. If that's what they give you, take it. Max
which is fine.
Take it, absolutely. When people say, "Oh my God, some of his yards for this," I go, "I don't care how you move the ball as long as you move it."
My thing is always has been this. It's like, what happens when you have to go beyond that? And it's like, again, like to your point, the people that are that harp on yards per attempt. It's like, if you sat back and threw 10-yard passes every single time, that's bad quarterback play. That's just not good. So, but what I saw was, again, a guy who, again, uses what's around him very well. He still has issues throwing the ball past that mark because he's just not accurate. And that's why, like, and this is the trap that they're kind of falling back into. I don't know if you saw Travis Kelce. I don't know. Obviously, the fan base, Brittany, all that stuff.
Brittany.
Yeah, Brittany. No, not Britney Spears. No, I'm very pro Brittany. Free Brittany, right? Hashtag free Brittany. But you would think this is exactly what happened to them last year. They are very arrogant. They are very, very arrogant. They go out there and finally have a pretty solid performance. All of a sudden, we're back. We're back. Well, what are you back from? You've had 10 games where you've largely played pretty mediocre. The defense has started to play a little bit better. The offense is still, again, I'd worry that this was, we talk about mirages a lot this weekend. I wonder if this is a mirage. It's a little bit of false sense of, okay, thank God we finally got over the hump. Well, again, I still saw a lot of the same issues that have crushed this team moving forward. And guess what? I need to see it more than just 1 week before I'm like, all right, this is it. This all of a sudden he's still, again, people are acting like this play from Patrick Mahomes is out of the norm this season. It's not. And the same play he's had his entire career. It's just, again, mistakes are being made and they're being capitalized on. Guess what? The Raiders didn't capitalize on them last night or Sunday or whatever. There was two fairly, bad passes that were dropped. Again, dropped interceptions. You can ignore them all you want until they end up rearing their ugly head, and eventually they're going to. Saw more of that. We saw more of that have to play hero ball. This desperate attempt to make these ridiculous plays that ultimately hurt his team as opposed to helping it. So yeah, great win, very nice. Yet, you criticize if people are going to criticize Brady for quote unquote stat padding. I would say 2 touchdowns late in the fourth quarter when the when the game was when the game was out of control. That's kind of inflating those stats. I'm not going to knock him for it. I mean, it is what it is. All the other quarterbacks do it, but
it's 21 years.
What's that?
Brady's never thrown a touchdown in a blowout in 21 years.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. I'm not criticizing him for it, but the thing is, it's the people that will sit there and I mean, we saw Shannon Sharp get up on camera and claim Brady was stat padding against the Dolphins, and he was out with 11 minutes left to go in the fourth quarter.
Right.
You know what I mean? So if you're going to say that, then yeah, absolutely, those 2 late touchdowns were a little bit on the fluffing side, but hey, it is that's what happens. Every quarterback does that. But
of course,
but
he doesn't quarter 32 points. He wants to get to 40, and even if they have and then at the end it's different because teams come back 15 points in the fourth quarter regularly, especially against the Celtics.
But that's the thing, though. If you're reasonable enough, you can't look at that and say, "Oh, they're all of a sudden back." No, enjoy the victory. No. It was a big win. They definitely this could go a long way into getting them back. Let's pump the brakes a little bit. Let's see what happens because they have a tough stretch of games coming up. You go back to last week against Green Bay. I mean, they're fortunate as hell that Aaron Rodgers, has the stance that he has on the vaccine because they would have lost that game because he didn't look good. That offense didn't look good, and that defense. It's hard to judge because again, it was Jordan Love. It was who knows, and it was cold out. Whatever. I'm not going to, you know what I mean. It's hard for me to draw conclusions from that.
Special teams weren't god awful. They could have won that game with Jordan Love.
Yeah,
they missed 2 field goals, makeable field goals, and they dropped a punt which led to 3 points. That's a 9-point swing.
Mm-hmm.
And very easy.
And don't forget, and a lot of Green Bay missed opportunities for turnovers as well in that game.
Exactly.
So
I think Kenny King had a potential interception.
Potential. The home threw it right to his breadbasket. He threw it right.
That's why the defensive back though.
Exactly.
That's why I'm going to be interested to see Sunday when Trayvon Diggs, who might be the best wide receiver in football. I mean, that guy's hands are phenomenal. I don't know who has better hands in the family, Trayvon or Stephon. I mean, they're both very, very talented at catching footballs. They just put Trayvon on the defensive side of the ball. I mean, like I said yesterday, there'll be a pick in there somewhere. Diggs probably picks Mahomes at some point.
Yeah, I would put a lot of money on that.
And Mahomes hit Hill on a 74-yard touchdown pass at some point because Diggs is ultra aggressive. So, look for some, they'll get him to bite and end up with, Tyreek Hill hitting his head on the goalpost. So that should be a fun game. That's going to be a big game because now we'll see where Kansas City's at. If I'm a Chiefs fan, I'm encouraged that the defense is playing better.
Yeah.
It's not, they're never going to have this elite shutdown defense. It's just not the way it works. But their defense is playing better of late. So that's probably something to look upon, where you can say. In the division right now, no one took control of it. The Chargers continue to poop their pants. Denver, hey, we've got the game plan to shut down Dallas. No, you don't. Dallas had a bad day. You come back and lose to Philadelphia. And the Raiders do this all the time. With Gruden as their coach or anyone as their coach, they get off to a good start and they peter out in the second half of the year. So Kansas City's actually right now looking like they should win that division, which gets them a home playoff game, which is important.
Oh, sure. Absolutely. So, all right. So we got about 10 minutes left. So let's do our quarterback rankings. And I said it going into this. I really don't know. This was more difficult than I imagined because a lot of these quarterbacks just didn't want to be on this list, apparently. They tried their hardest not to. And by virtue of a lack of a better option, I guess. I got Patrick Mahomes, number 5. Give credit where credit's due. He had a really nice game on Sunday. The important thing for him is obviously, can you keep doing that and can you keep playing games without turning the ball over or at the very least putting it in a risky position? So We'll see what happens throughout the course of the season. But right now, I gotta put him at number 5.
5 came down to me between Lamar Jackson and Patrick Mahomes. I went with Lamar Jackson because I think he's doing more with less. And he also beat Patrick Mahomes in a game, so I'll give him the tiebreaker on that. So I got Lamar Jackson at number 5.
Surprisingly, this might surprise you a little bit, and maybe this was just the nature of trying to figure out who the hell is actually good in this league. I got Josh Allen number 4. Am I crazy? Because like I thought he had a pretty good game this past week. He's gone through some struggles, but for the most part, he's got this Buffalo team playing pretty well. I know I knocked him a little bit these last couple weeks, but I thought he had a really solid performance against the Jets. I mean, who doesn't? But um, I mean, again, a lot of this has to do with who's stepping up. Well, not too many players are stepping up, so you got to fill out 5 spots somehow. And number 4 to me is Josh Allen.
Okay, I went with Kyler Murray. I know he's missed the last 2 games.
See,
I won one without him.
I took him out because of that. I couldn't.
Right.
He missed 2 games. I couldn't put him in there.
Yeah, he's played 80% of the games, so that kind of has me on the cusp there. While he's played, he's been outstanding. Probably right there with Brady as the leading MVP candidate, but missing 2 games is obviously going to hurt him going forward. Probably doesn't play this week because they got a bye coming up. I'd give him an extra week because those ankle injuries can be just a pain in the butt and keep you not quite right for a month or so. So I've got Kyler at number 4.
All right. So number 3 for me. Number 3, Dak Prescott. Rebounded after a pretty bad game the week before. You already mentioned Dallas kind of just didn't show up that day. They did show up this way this week against Atlanta. I mean, at one point in the second quarter, I believe it was 36-3. So they did leave a lot of points out there, but he's been playing really well, and he's right up there in the mix. We've already talked about him, but yeah, I got him at number 3.
Yeah, I got him at number 3. Absolutely, I think he's right there in the MVP conversation. He really hasn't had a bad game. I mean, the game against Denver, they weren't on the field much. That's partly his fault, but mostly the defense's fault for not getting off the field. So I've got Dak at number 3, and I think he's set up for the marquee game Sunday against Kansas City. If Dallas wins and he outplays Mahomes, he's going to be that much better for it.
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And I'm guessing our next 2 are identical. So I'm just going to say both of them, and then we can discuss or just kind of leave it at that because we've kind of discussed at quite a great length these 2, Aaron Rodgers and Tom Brady. At the end of the day, Aaron Rodgers has had again. I mean, this isn't necessarily a MVP discussion because I do think that him missing, as we mentioned before, missing those games hurts his chances and kind of knocks him out of the running. But when it comes to playing consistently from start to finish, there's been no 2 better quarterbacks in the league from the beginning of the season till now than Brady and Rodgers. And Rodgers, I think, is doing things a little bit differently than Brady, of course, but both of them have been greatly efficient. Obviously, Rodgers doesn't turn the ball over that often. Both quarterbacks had interceptions this past week, but again, when in the grand scheme of things, they're still on the lower spectrum, lower part of it all. And look, it's part of it is, a lot of other quarterbacks just didn't step up in opportunities that they had. The other fact is, I mean, these 2 guys have just been playing efficiently from start to finish. A bad game for either of these 2 players is a mediocre game for the most part for everyone else. So, so
I always look at it as the reason I put these guys 1 and 2, and I got Brady 1 and Rodgers 2, is that who do you trust more than these 2 guys in closing out a game? 4-minute offense. Yeah, when you've got like a 5-point lead, and if you saw Brady do that in the NFC Championship game, he struggled in the fourth quarter, but he got the job done to end up taking a knee and sealing the victory. And Rodgers does that really well as well. Occasionally they get a little bit full of themselves and try to push it a little bit too much, but bleed the clock, check down to the run, be efficient. And then if it's 3rd and 4, you trust these 2 guys are going to make a safe throw to get that next first down to kill another 2 minutes. So that's big. It's almost like having a great reliever, right? Mariano Rivera coming in to close out the game, you feel pretty comfortable. Same thing with Brady and Rodgers, and of course with Mac Jones as well. Although because the drive against the Chargers a couple weeks ago was damn impressive. When
I
almost
almost
had a 1 lead in that game, and he was really good. Yeah, I hope you didn't. Well, you almost put him in the top 5.
I had discussions. I had some internal discussions about
with who, your cat?
Yeah. Oh, have you seen them, Megan? They're, I got to talk to someone here.
They're involved. They're part of the organization.
But as I'm sure you're impressed, I cooler heads prevailed, and I said next week. Next week is going to be the week. No, look, I mean, if he goes out and again has another really good game, it's going to be harder, especially considering some of the play of some of these other quarterbacks. And trust me, any chance I get to maybe knock Patrick Mahomes out of this list, I will take. What?
This is like the Oscar nominations for Best Actors. There's always one in there that go, how the hell did that guy get in there? It's like, how did he get a nomination? Well, it wasn't really a great year for actors.
Yeah.
So they gave out a nomination to some guy who has no chance to win. And, meanwhile, there's, Jack Nicholson and Daniel Day-Lewis getting nominations and not winning the Oscar 20 years ago. Adrian Brody won the Oscar, which still, I'm shocked at that selection by Oscar, because I thought Nicholson and About Schmidt and Daniel Day-Lewis in Gangs of New York were both far superior. But I can't give those guys the Oscars every year, even though they deserve it.
Well, you should. You could.
Why not?
Just like Brady should be getting the MVP every year. And guess what, John?
Bond has 7 MVPs. Probably should have 9. I guess, that's the way it works. What did Wayne Gretzky win? 8 straight MVPs?
He was. Look, the most impressive MVP obviously is in hockey is Bobby Orr. Come on, the guy was incredible. But unfortunately, we're out of time.
Gretzky won 8. Gretzky won 8 MVPs in a row.
It was 8. Okay, I wasn't sure if it was 7 or 8 in a row.
Or won like 4 out of 6 or 3 out of 5. We're not going to go into the discussion of power ranking hockey players all the time, right? We're not going to get into that.
No. I mean, we could eventually, but not today. We'll have to save that for
another
hockey
show.
Exactly. But thank you everyone for tuning in. Thank you for putting up with our nonsense, and we will talk to you soon. So have a great day, and we'll talk to you then.